Choosing between Doylestown, Newtown, and Yardley is not about which one is better. It's about which one actually works for your life, and if you get that wrong, you usually do not realize it until after you've already moved. I've seen people choose the town that looked best on paper, and within a year, they're frustrated with their commute, disconnected from their community, or feeling like they paid for a lifestyle that they're not even using. So if you're trying to figure out where you actually belong, not just where you can buy, this is where you need to get honest about how you live. Before we even get into the towns, here is the framework I want you to use. There are really three things that determine whether you're happy where you live: how you spend your weekdays, how you spend your weekends, how often you leave your house. That is it. Yes, schools matter. Yes, the house matters. Yes, price matters. But those things do not fully determine whether a house fits your life. Most people optimize for the house. The people who are happiest usually optimize for their actual day-to-day life. So as you listen to this, I want you to run everything through that filter. Not which town sounds nicest, which town actually fits the way you live. And if you're deciding between these three, you're probably not choosing between bad options. You are choosing between three good options with very different trade-offs. That is exactly why people get stuck. Let's start with Doylestown. This is the town that I personally grew up in, so I may be a little biased, but this is my personal experience and I want to share it with you. Doylestown is lifestyle first. What you are really paying for here is not just the house. You are paying for access to a certain kind of daily life. You have a walkable downtown, restaurants, coffee shops, events, boutiques, a real sense that things are happening around you, a community feel that is easy to tap into. You can leave your house and actually do something about it without feeling like a project. That matters more than people realize. A lot of buyers are drawn to Doylestown because it feels alive. It feels established. It feels like the kind of place where you can settle in and feel connected pretty quickly. But here is where people get this wrong. They think that would be nice to have. But what they don't ask is, will I actually use it? Because if you're not someone who goes out during the week, likes being in town, takes advantage of walkability, meets friends out locally, or enjoys having activity built into your environment, then you may be paying a premium for a lifestyle that looks better in theory than it feels in real life. That is one of the biggest mistakes buyers make in Doylestown. They fall in love with the identity of the town, but they do not stop and ask whether it matches the rhythm of their family. If your real life is home-centered, if your weekdays are packed, if your weekends are mostly sports, errands, recovery, and family time at home, Doylestown can still be a great fit. But you need to be honest that part of what you're paying for may not be something you use often enough to justify. And the cost side matters here too. When you buy in Doylestown, you're often paying for location, feel, and access, not just square footage. So if your priority is maximizing house for the money, this may not feel like the strongest value depending on your budget. But if your priority is being in a town that gives you energy, activity, and identity outside of your house, Doylestown delivers that in a way very few places do. So the real question with Doylestown is this: do you want your lifestyle to happen outside your house as much as inside it? Because if the answer is yes, Doylestown moves up the list very quickly. Now let's talk about Newtown. Newtown is different. Newtown wins on function. It is less about charm pulling you in emotionally and more about life working well once you live there. You have strong convenience, good access to major roads, shopping, restaurants, and day-to-day needs nearby. A lot of neighborhoods that feel organized, stable, and predictable. For many families, that is a huge advantage, especially if your life is busy. If your weekdays are work, school drop-offs, sports, activities, appointments, errands, and trying to hold the whole thing together, like me, Newtown tends to reduce friction, and that matters. A lot of people underestimate how much quality of life comes down to ease. How easy is it to get where you need to go? How easy is it to get things done? How easy is it to maintain your routine without every day feeling harder than it needs to? Newtown tends to answer those questions well. But there is a trade-off here too. Newtown does not automatically create a lifestyle for you the way a place like Doylestown can. It supports your life, it does not necessarily shape it. So if you're someone who wants more charm, more uniqueness, more of a strong emotional feel to where you live, or a stronger sense that your town has a specific personality, Newtown can feel a little more neutral over time. Not bad, not generic, but more practical than magnetic. And for some people, that is exactly what they want. Because if you're raising kids, managing work, and trying to make smart long-term decisions, practical is not a bad thing. Practical can be a huge relief. This is why Newtown often appeals to buyers who want life to run smoothly, not necessarily curated, not necessarily quaint, just easier. And that matters more than people want to admit. So the real question with Newtown is, do you want your town to impress you or support you? Because if you actually need support, convenience, and predictability, Newtown usually starts making a lot of sense. Here is a good checkpoint. Ask yourself this: do you want your environment to create your lifestyle for you, or do you want your environment to stay out of your way? That question alone clears up a lot. If your answer is create my lifestyle, Doylestown may be stronger. If your answer is stay out of my way and help life run better, Newtown may start to feel like the better fit. And then there is Yardley. Yardley is in its own lane. Yardley is quieter, more subtle, more lifestyle specific. It tends to appeal to people who want a calmer, day-to-day feel without feeling disconnected. You have access to the train for Philly commuters. You have a more residential, relaxed environment. You have river proximity, walking paths, and a different kind of pace. Yardley is often less about activity and more about balance. That is what draws people in. If Doylestown feels active and Newtown feels practical, Yardley often feels breathable. And for the right buyer, that feeling is everything. But here's the catch. Yardley works really well for the right person and feels limiting for the wrong one. If you're expecting a lot of built-in buzz, constant things to do, or a strong downtown energy, you may end up feeling like something is missing. Because Yardley is not trying to entertain you. It is trying to give you room. Room to breathe, room to settle in. That is a very different value proposition. And if you commute into the city, value walkability in a softer way, want access without feeling surrounded by constant activity, Yardley can make a lot of sense. But if your ideal life includes a lot of spontaneous dinners out, events, or that more active small town feel, Yardley may feel a little too quiet after the excitement of the move wears off. That is the mistake people make here. They confuse peaceful with perfect. Peaceful is only perfect if it matches the way you actually want to live. So the real question with Yardley is, are you looking for energy or are you looking for breathing room? Because Yardley gives you breathing room in a way the other two do not. Now let's pull this all together. You are not really choosing between three towns. You are choosing between three different versions of your life. Doylestown gives you more lifestyle outside of your home. Newtown gives you more convenience and functional ease. Yardley gives you more calm and balance and is great if you need to commute into New York City or Trenton. And none of those are better, but one of them is going to fit you better. That is the part that matters, because the biggest mistake people make is trying to choose the best town instead of choosing the town that aligns with the way they actually live. And usually the regret does not come from buying a bad house. It comes from choosing a place that looked right on paper but felt wrong once real life kicked in. That is why this decision deserves more depth than a pros and cons list. You need to think through, what does your week actually look like? What do your weekends look like? How much convenience matters to you? How much character matters to you? How much space do you want around you? How important is walkability really? What are you willing to pay for more? And what sounds nice but probably will not change your life? If you can answer those questions honestly, the right town usually becomes much clearer. If you are in that stage where you're trying to sort through all of this and figure out not just where to buy, but what actually makes sense for your family and your lifestyle, That is exactly the kind of conversation I help people have every day. And if you're deciding between these towns or even just trying to narrow down the right part of Bucks County, reach out and we can map it out based on your real life, not just what sounds good online. And if this helped you think about the decision differently, subscribe to my channel because I make these videos to help you get real clarity before you make a move you cannot easily undo.